All right, guys. So today we're going to be going over the prologue for Romeo and Juliet. Um, Romeo and Juliet is a play by William Shakespeare. If you don't know the play, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's 400 years old, and it's probably the most famous love story in history. So the prologue in a Shakespeare play really operated very much like a trailer or a movie teaser. It basically set up the story to come and then kind of laid out what we could expect, but without giving up too much away. So in Shakespeare, it's in blank verse, which just means that there are certain lines and they have a certain amount of beats per line, and then it cuts off and it goes to the next one. A blank verse can rhyme or it cannot rhyme. There were two styles that he wrote in: blank verse and prose. In prose, you would just see like in a regular paragraph or regular lines on a play. So they kind of go one into the other. But if you see the structure of the lines right here on screen, this is what blank verse looks like. So two households, both alike in dignity. If you look at the first line, when Shakespeare is, it goes line by line. Really, it's broken down actually by feet. And if you really want to get deep into it, it's broken down by phonemes, which are the basic building blocks of all language, basically the sounds that we use to speak and to communicate. But we don't have to get into that right now. So, two households, when you see the first bit, right? A household, he doesn't say cohorts, he doesn't say two gangs, he doesn't say two families, he doesn't say two tribes, he says households. So, when you think of the word household, really, it's meant to be a household, and it's meant to be a large group of people. You're supposed to get this image in your mind that it is a bunch of people that belong to this tribe, right? Um, and a household actually is underneath a home that presumably somebody built. So there's a meant to be sort of a solidity to what he's saying. Households, homes are solid, right? Both alike in dignity. Dignity is not a word that we often use now in modern context, but dignity, right? Something dignified. You think of somebody whose their chin is up, is nice and high, their chest is high, their chest is up nice and high, right? Like they have status, they have probably money, they have some sort of education, right? In Shakespeare, when you read the lines, it's not just the words that are on the page. The words are literally living, breathing things. They're meant to elicit many images in them, right? You could literally pick a word and then find many images to fill out that word. And that's what you want to do when you're looking through this text. It isn't simply saying pretty words, they're meant to convey very vivid imagery, not information, imagery. The Elizabethan language, the Elizabethans were the people that Shakespeare was writing for, named after Queen Elizabeth. They had a very different relationship to language than we have now. Right now, we're mostly a literate society. They were mostly illiterate. And so words were living, breathing things to them. They actually had real meaning. Right now, I think we're sort of, words have meaning to us, but really we're more of an image based. We sort of get bombarded with imagery and moving images a lot. But that's a relatively new phenomenon for humanity, right? Most of humanity was an oral, especially in the Western world. There was an oral tradition that's how stories and family heritage and these things and culture was passed down orally. And so that's how people received and digested stories. And so they actually heard them. People went to go hear a play, not to see a play. It's still called an audience as an auditory. Um, so the images really were people were very much involved with the imagery that was being expressed to them. And poetry was extremely important. If you ever read beautiful poetry and you're open to it, I mean, it can bring you to tears. It can really move you. It can transport you really in a very real way. And that's what this work is meant to do. So in fair Verona, so you look at the word fair. The word fair has different meanings. We think of fair as something as fair. It's like, oh, well, it was a fair deal or it was a fair game between two people. But really, fair, what fair meant in that context was beautiful, attractive. Often it could mean someone kind, someone that you wanted to be around. It also meant someone that was fair of skin. So somebody with fair skin is somebody very white. This is Western Europe, so the people don't get butthurt about it. Like it's not a big deal. This is just who they would do. They were writing for their audience. To them, beauty was very fair. So when they call a fair woman, they don't just mean that she's very white. They also mean she's probably very beautiful. It also means she's also probably very feminine. very sweet, very kind, which is a traditionally feminine form of attractiveness. Where we lay our scene. So the scene is they knew they were watching a play. Now, when we go to the movies, we know that we're watching a film, obviously. But they very much knew that they were watching a film, a play. Like often the actors would break the fourth wall whenever they had a soliloquy. They were really talking to the audience. They weren't just saying words sort of by themselves. One, that gets boring as hell, and two, the audience was a part of the show. They were right on top of the actors, right? And so these people probably knew these plays by heart. And so when they're talking about that, they want to let them know, hey guys, you're about to watch a show. And this is, and you'll see when you get to the end of the actual prologue itself, they basically just tell them, hey, we're going to watch a show. Just enjoy the show. This is what's going to go on. Blah, blah, blah. Prepare yourselves for it. But it also, that's a bit of a foreshadowing because they are seen at the end of this play, spoiler alert, they both die. Romeo and Juliet both die. And one of the last scenes that they have, really the last scene that they have, is in like catacombs, right, where they're laying and Romeo finds Juliet and thinks she's dead. She's not. She's just asleep. She takes a potion. But they're both really laid up on top of each other at the end of it when they finally both die. He stabs himself. She drinks a poison, and then that's it. That's the end of the story. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny. So grudge, we all know it's beef, grudge between two people, right? From ancient grudge, meaning it's telling you this is old. This is probably so old they don't even know how this grudge started. Um, but it also gives you, Italy is a very old place. If you think about ancient Rome, you think about these family feuds. This might have gone back 1,000 years. But it's also meant to explain to you and elucidate to you that humanity has been going through this bullshit since time immemorial. There have always been rival factions shooting people, right? Like this isn't new. Is basically what he's telling you. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, right? This is something that has gone on for a very long time, and now it breaks to something even to new mutiny. And mutiny, if you think of mutiny, is if you think of a ship, the soldiers, not the soldiers, the sailors, if they grew dissatisfied with the captain, they would mutiny. They would rise up against the captain and they would take over, right? So it gives you the thing is this is civil strife. This is a civil war. They go into it in the next line here, but whenever you're reading Shakespeare, it's what is he telling you? What are the words on the page? What are the texture of the words? What's actually being communicated? And then what is he saying as well? Right, because there's other stuff going on, right? It's not just the image, it's not just the word, that's the word and then the images that are attached to it, and it sort of expands. You think of it as sort of a geometric a thing, right? The story continues to expand as the story expands, as the words are being used, right? Shakespeare's larger than life. It's never just the thing that they're saying. There's nothing casual about this. There's nothing casual about any of the themes that he ever talks about because there's nothing casual about life ever. Especially not when it comes to the great works. So where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. So civil blood, obviously the civil blood within the civilization, within the community that they're talking about, civil blood, and that's also telling you their blood is going to be shed, makes civil hands unclean. So remember what we talked about dignity in the first part of the speech. People that are dignified, very clean, very proper, very put together. Everything is great, right? Like all these other things. But he's talking about civil blood makes civil hands. These dignified people are about to get their hands dirty, right? This is what he's trying to communicate to you. And this is what he's trying to set up. This reads exactly like a teaser trailer, especially the teaser trailers from the 90s. Now it's a lot more editing and stuff like that. But the teaser trailer from the 90s definitely had a voiceover, and the dude was telling you, bum, 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 like this thing's about to happen, right? And you really you were engaged and very sort of captivated by what he was about to say. Um, from forth the fatal loins of these two foes. So loins, if you think of loins, the loins as in literally the what do you call them? The loins, which is sexual, right? It's got a sexual connotation to it. 9 times out of 10, if it sounds like a dick joke in Shakespeare, it's a dick joke. Like Shakespeare's one giant dick joke. But fatal loins, obviously he's talking about fatal as in fatal, something that's deadly. Fatal loins of these two foes, right? So for the fatal loins of these two foes, it means the issue, the babies, the things that were made from the loins of these two foes, these two rival factions, these two rival families, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. So the loins from these two families, from the loins where two children were born, and they were star-crossed lovers. That means they were destined for one another. Take their life. It means that they killed themselves. They're basically foreshadowing. They're telling you what's going to happen. They're going to kill themselves in the story. Whose misadventured piteous overthrows, whose misadventured piteous overthrows, do with their deaths bury their parents' strife. So whose misadventured piteous overthrows. So the overthrow, misadventure. There's an adventure and a misadventure. That means an adventure that is ill-fated. Piteous overthrows, as in overthrowing the parents, or overthrowing the civilization, or overthrowing Verona, overthrowing the town. Um, do with their deaths bury their parents' strife. So what he's telling you is when they die, the beef is ended, right? Which is sad because it takes the death of these kids to end this civil strife, this beef that's been going on forever. The fearful passage of their death marked love. The fearful passage is in passage. And you're talking about a passage that's something that's actually written down or something that's communicated verbally, but also the passage as in a road traveled, the fearful passage of their death marked love. And he's telling you their love is death marked. So you don't think of love as being death marked, which is sort of, it's a play on words there, right? You're saying love, which is meant to spring life and beauty and sunshine and rainbows and all these other things, is marked by death. So it's ill fated. It's already destined to not work out. Um, and the continuance of their parents' rage, obviously the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end not could remove. The only thing that could remove this rage from their parents is the children's death. Not could remove is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage. This story that I just told you about, this tragic tale of these two star-crossed lovers that come from these two rival factions, which, if you think about it, it makes it doubly difficult because they're enemies who have fallen in love. And that goes on in the story, right? Like Juliet even says, well, why are you called Romeo? I wish you had a different name. Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Wherefore means why are you called Romeo? Um, and she tells him to deny thy father and refuse thy name. And then Romeo hears her and he says, I'll refuse my name. I'll change my name, whatever. Because love conquers all, really is the moral of the story. Is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage. So he's telling you this play is going to last 2 hours. Now, if you've ever seen a Shakespeare show or you've ever actually been in a Shakespeare show, then none of them are 2 hours unless there's like severe cuts, which tells me two things. One, they acted and put on the show in a much faster clip than we do now, which means that they were more facile with language, probably. And people could actually just receive it more. If you try to do it at a clip in a modern language, they're just not going to grasp everything. So you kind of have to slow it down so that people can actually get the story. Um, and then the witch, if you with patient ears attend. So he says, the witch with you with patient ears attend. Patiently, please listen to the story. Attend. Atender in Spanish, actually, asistir actually means to attend. So with patient ears attend, not only to attend the story of being in the play itself, but actually to pay attention to the story that's being, with patient ears attend. Be patient with what we're about to say. Also, I think it also leans into the insecurity naturally of actors. It's like, we're going to put on a good show for you. Love us. Like me. Please like me. That's sort of like what the prologue is talking about, right? Would here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. So he says, which you don't get here with what I'm telling you in this prologue, our toil, which is toiling means to work or really means to grind out or really means to sort of suffer through this thing. We're going to put on a show and we're going to try to sort of make up for it. Our toil shall strive to mend. Um, and they use the word mend because there's a rupture in the fabric of life in this story. There's a rupture of youth. There's a rupture of beauty. These people die young. And there's a rupture civilly with respect to the story itself. So that's a bit of a breakdown with Romeo and Juliet in the prologue. Romeo and Juliet. Obviously, there's a lot more work that can be gone into that. We can go even a little bit deep, much deeper. Obviously, this is something that's meant to be not only performed, but meant to be communicated to the audience itself. You stand in front of people on an empty stage, probably a singular person as a prologue. Depends on how you stage it, and then you speak to the audience and you tell them what you're meant to communicate. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this stuff. If you're interested in Shakespeare, I am a Shakespeare coach, an online Shakespeare coach for television and film actors. Um, I turn you into a leading man or a leading lady. And Shakespeare is really the creme de la creme of all acting training. It is the scariest and most difficult thing you can tackle, but once you get around this, everything else is cake. Everything else is downhill. So if this helped you out, obviously take this with you, apply this to any of the stuff that you're doing. All the film and television work that you put on, this is directly applicable, and you'll see with more videos that I put out why that's the case. And yeah, so hit me up in the comments or shoot me a DM or go to my website, childrenofdionysus.com. Check out my stuff. We've got some testimonials on there, stuff like that, and a little bit of background into what I do. All right, guys, thank you very much for your time. I love you very much. Have a great day.